Hi, my name is Alex. I live in this rather small farming city. We have a church on a hill and one very local grocery store, and somehow there's a Dollar General here too. Life here is rather simple and easy. I wake up, I turn on my studio, and I broadcast music for the town. It's nothing special, just classic rock and some country, but I make decent money off it. One thing I noticed, our signal never goes past the town borders. My only guess is something to do with the magnetosphere, but I'm no scientist. About a year ago, around middle of August, something weird started happening here. Military trucks and other large equipment started being hauled in. They took over the church's base of operations, and they even put up large fences and barbed wire all around it. Whatever they were doing must have been serious. It wasn't but a few days after did they start testing the air raid siren we have. Only way to really get to it was in my shed, as I owned the radio station and enough power supply to run the siren and the station if there was ever a blackout. So guess what the boys did? If you said annexed my station and shed, you're correct. It wasn't really a big deal. They sounded like they needed it for something. They've been paying me twice what I was making, so I'm not angry at all. So I've been staying at my little brother's and his new wife's home for the past few days within the year. The day I moved in, it was all nice and happy. Until at exactly 1 p.m., all the military guys started corralling all the people to their homes in a rush, too. They seemed scared, like the whole lot of them seen a ghost. Silly thought, I know. However, they weren't taking no's, as they were really rough with the townsfolk. Looking through the blinds, I see they were all done getting everyone home. Maybe they're running some sort of test? Well, turns out, less than 10 minutes later, we hear the siren go off. Stay inside and go to the nearest room without windows. If you can't, close the blinds and cover your ears and eyes. This is not a drill. Do not leave for any reason. If someone is caught leaving, they will be marked as a threat. If you hear knocks at the window or door, do not answer it. Even if it's family or friends, and even if they're in a dire situation, again, this is not a drill, and we will let you know when to come out. It goes on like this for a few hours. I was in my room, which luckily is located in the basement. I can hear someone upstairs slamming on our doors. I can hear my brother talking to his wife. "We gotta check, honey. It's my friend Aaron," he said in a hushed tone. I slowly walk up the stairs and hearing his wife say, "Well, here, take your gun and at least be ready for anything." As I got to the top of the stairs, I creaked the door open to see what is going on. "Aaron, I'm going to open the door, but you gotta run in fast, okay?" I can hear a muffled 10-4, buddy. It wasn't Aaron. It was something deep sounding. I felt immediate fear and closed my door before they opened their front door. I heard Aaron say, and "Ye shall overthrow their altars, and break their pillars, and burn their groves with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and destroy the names of them out of that place." After that, I heard shots fire. It was my brother, I'm sure of it. His wife Sammy was screaming and tried to come into the basement with me, but I locked the door. I heard the false Aaron walk up to Sammy as she was screaming. It was then I heard the cracking of bone and twisting of flesh. Her cries went silent, and so was the home. I can hear Aaron gorging and eating on them. I kept my face covered as the smell of blood wafted through the air. I can see the viscous and fresh blood of Sammy flowing through the bottom of the door. It wasn't long when I heard this thing knock at my door. I know you can hear me, child. Do not be afraid, as we are here to cleanse the sinners, leaving only the saints. You are not a sinner. You can let me in. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen, but it felt like it was speaking in my brain. The sound of horns were ringing in my head. Child, you cannot ignore me. I'm all that was and will be. I know you. I uncovered my ears and checked up the stairs. I noticed the door got unlocked, so I yelled back. What did you do to my brother? What is it you want? At this point, I'm nearly pissing myself in fear. Your brother and his wife committed a grave, unforgivable sin. We cannot let it slide. Let me in, child. You need not be afraid. I sat there thinking, and I slowly walked up the stairs. It felt autonomous. I couldn't stop my own movements. There is no fighting this. You are a saint. You will obey and listen. I don't know what to do at this point. What did he mean I'm a saint? It was then I slowly started to twist the doorknob. At full force, the sirens were wailing once again, and I regained my consciousness and composure. I quickly locked the door again and ran down the stairs. I can hear the thing say, "We will meet again, my child. Go now on God, good grace." This voice was loud and thundered in my head, leaving my ears to ring. I can only hear the siren afterward, and what sounded like giant wings flapping in the distance. Civilians, coast is clear. I repeat, coast is clear. We ask you to stay in your homes so we can do some research. Please bear with us a little longer. Thank you. It clicks off and the siren starts to die down. It wasn't but a few minutes when I hear, "Holy fuck, they got another. Search the house for survivors." I slowly opened the door and yelled, "I'm alive, please help me." It was then the door swung open as a large man pulled me into the kitchen. I found myself around 5 men, armed to the teeth, pointing guns at me. "Test him," one guy said. I was immediately shoved against the wall, and the guy testing me grabbed my arm and stuck a small needle and injected something. "What the fuck are you injecting in my arm, you nutjobs?" They all stared at me, waiting for a reaction, however nothing happened. They all collectively sighed in relief, and the one that tested me said, "You're coming with us. We have to ask you some questions." I looked around, and the bodies of my brother and sister-in-law weren't there. All I could see was black ashes scattered throughout the kitchen and by the front door. "What happened to them?" I asked. They seemed to ignore my question, and we walked outside. I can hear crying throughout the town. Looks like entire families were just erased out of existence. Some people never came out to look around. They were probably scared shitless. I'm not even sure how many disappeared, but it must have been dozens. We arrive at the old church. They opened the front gate and let us in. I can see it was patrolled by drones. Everywhere I look, there was a camera, and no one was stationed outside. We get inside, and it looks like they removed all the pews and the altar. Countless days I spent praying with my brother in these very halls, running around the pews after hours while our father talked to the priest. I started to cry. I missed the little brother I once raised and played with. seeing all of that stripped and replaced by kinds of machines, cables, and chairs. Almost 100 different monitors, each with a person watching hours of surveillance footage. My brother gets slaughtered like a lamb, and now this? It was way too much to handle. I broke into tears, and so I shouted, "Okay, I'm here. Now what the hell do you want?" "Sir, we know this is all too much, but we have to talk to you." I calmed down. I never was confrontational, so I took a deep breath and kept following them. They led me into the basement. High-end security scanning their eyes, and looks like a robot arm came out of the wall and poked them with a needle. Must be the same stuff they used on me. We passed through the security and walked down a hallway to a room at the end. This was the pastor's room. He lived in the church, but he died a few years back. He was a good man. It just feels kind of wrong to go into this room. How many hours has this man poured into his community to save us in a time of sorrow? I remember it like it was yesterday. My father passed away when I was 16, leaving the radio station to me. I remember the priest here consoled me and said, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." It was a beautiful funeral. The whole town came by and hugged my brother and I. We only had each other at this point, so I made it my mission to always take care of him. I saw the photo my dad and the priest took together. He was so happy back then, before Mom ran off. He was hardworking and always gave his time to help others in need. A good man. I'm happy I got to know my father, and I remember talking to the priest in this room about some of the funny things about him. The memories come flooding back, and I began to weep a little. I took a deep breath, in and out. I had to swallow my feelings down as I was disassociating. It was then I was asked to sit at the old oak table and to wait there. The man who escorted me here asked if I needed anything. A Coke?" I said quietly, holding my face in my hands. "Got it." The officer leaves the room. A few minutes later, someone else entered with 2 Cokes and a notepad. "Hello." He looks down at his notepad. "Alex. I'm the leader of this OP, and we have some questions about what you saw. Hear you asked for a Coke?" He handed it to me. I took it, opened it up, and took a large gulp after I let out a sigh. "I want to know where my brother and sister-in-law are before I answer anything." The man looked me in the eyes and took his sunglasses off, and I saw his eyes. They were all white like he had cataracts. "Your brother and sister-in-law are gone. We can't help them now." He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "And you survived and resisted. We need to know why." I slammed my hands down on the table. "Bullshit! People don't just disappear. I can't believe the gall of you suit and tie bootlickers." He tossed a file he was holding and the notepad at me. "Read. It'll explain it all." I opened the file. Inside was a series of pictures and notes. The pictures looked to be giant winged beasts of just floating eyes and wings. This was in front of my house. I started to sweat and turned to the next image. It changed shape to Aaron, and the last picture was grabbing my brother's head and it was ripping it off. I remember dropping the pictures and throwing up on the floor. What the fuck is that thing? The man put his glasses back on and handed me a tissue. It's an angel, Alex. Your brother and sister-in-law committed a sin. I'm sorry, but they're gone. We don't know where they took them, but it looks like they're just gone. With no trace but black ashes that aren't even made of carbon. It's an element we have yet to classify. I got myself together and asked, why are you guys wanting to talk to me then? I didn't do this. He pointed the file and said, keep looking. As I was flipping through, the angel turned back to its normal form, and you can see straight into the home past the kitchen to the door I was behind. But I wasn't. I was in front of the door. I was staring at it. Why? What the fuck? Why didn't it kill me? The agent took the files back and said, few people survived this. So let's get down to the point. You are a saint. Somehow you're on a whitelist with these things. And so far, you and I are the only known ones. He sighs and says, that's why we came here. To find you. Everyone else in this town is either gone or scared shitless. We have to make them forget everything. I grabbed my head in confusion, running my hands through my jet black hair in a feeble attempt to calm myself. Why me? I said quietly. I can feel my heart racing. Heat was rushing to my face. You never committed a sin, and it's physically impossible for you to do as well. You can continue your life here, or you can choose to come with us. But in a year, they will come back. I thought to myself, I got nothing left. My family's all gone, and my job was taken from me. I want to stay, but I feel like I'm safe with these people. Can we wait a year to see what happens? I asked shakingly. Yes. We will monitor the area, however, every year on August the 16th. This will happen again. We already sealed the area around the town off, so no radio communications can enter or leave the area. We may ask you to come out during the event so we can monitor you. I took another large drink of my soda. Okay, I'll do it. With the idea of talking about the thing that just took my only family away, I was furious. Shortly after, I was released and went home. It's July. Nothing happened since, and the missing townsfolk were replaced with agents, but no one other than them seemed to have noticed. Life has been normal, and I was allowed to use my radio again. I'm counting down the days till this happens again. Will I be prepared? How can I stop them? I don't know. What I know is, as the days draw closer, I can hear the whispering of them above. I know they're watching. Once they come down here, I will know where my brother is. Until then, I'll keep you guys posted, and please, if you see my town, turn back and head home. It's not worth your life. Hi, Alex here. I thought you guys wanted to get an update. Also, thank you for the kind words. It's been rather hard. My brother's death and his wife's screams are burned into my brain. Another issue is the trumpets are getting louder and I'm starting to hear chanting and bells chiming. It's day in and day out, non-stop. I've been contemplating suicide. Just end it all, you know? I find myself about to go down that hole of no return and welcome the release of death. However, anytime I get brave enough and I'm about to pull that hammer back, I black out. I wake up usually on my bed with the gun on the floor where I was sitting. Whatever's going on, whatever these fucking things want is beyond me. That's not the worst of it. It's when I sleep. That's when the true nightmare begins. I feel like if I tell you guys this, it may help me cope a little. That last message I sent out, everyone was rather nice. It's so much to unpack, and if you have a weak stomach, please skip ahead if you want to. It all started last night. My dream, nightmare began with just a black canvas. It was just me mindlessly drifting in a seemingly infinite void. But I couldn't wake up or move. That's all there was. Just me in the dark floating. I started to panic as still to this very minute feels real, and with that it felt like this won't ever end. In my head, what felt like decades pass as I float in pure darkness with only my thoughts. It wasn't much longer, maybe a year or two, it's hard to tell to be honest, that I started seeing something in the distance slowly approaching me. Or maybe I was approaching it. In the distance, there was a long hallway with no end in sight. The hallway looked like the hospital halls I used to frequent. It reminded me of how my dad lost his life to cancer. All the years we spent, the countless hours crying and praying for him to get better. So yeah, I know these halls as if it was my home. It was scary how accurate this was. Down to the light blue stripe and the off-white color of the walls. I finally floated to this hall and landed on the floor. I kept looking at the checkered pattern floor, thinking to myself on how life would be if my father survived, if my mother never ran away. Would my brother still be alive? Sorry for getting a little emotional. I just have to let you guys know exactly how it is. I decided to swallow my fears and my judgment. As I walked down the hall, the only sound was my heavy footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. After what seems like miles of walking, I came across a door. It's my father's room. I see a light on the bottom of the door. I can hear something else. It was my dad calling out to me. So I rushed through the door and saw my dad looking like he did long ago. Young and healthy. I instantly rushed in and hugged my father. His cologne smelled as strong as it used to. His hug back was warm and inviting. I haven't felt this happy in my life. There, champ. My oh my. You have grown. Look at you. Strong as an ox. My father said robustly. Thanks, Papa. I've been working out a lot to help with the depression. You don't know, but losing you was the hardest thing in my life. Well, where's little Donnie? I've missed him too. My dad trying to look behind me at the door, expecting my goofball brother to burst in. Pops. Donnie. And before I could say a word, he jumps out of the closet and yells, Dad! You're alive! I don't know how to process this. I saw my brother's ashes. Donnie? How are you here? My brother looked at me. I don't rightfully know, to be honest. I was opening my door for my buddy Aaron, and next I know, I fell out the closet. As my brother and father hug and caught up, I took a deep few breaths and ran my fingers through my hair, trying to find a way to tell my brother what happened. As I turn around and open my mouth, I hear the trumpets in full force. My head feels like it was going to explode. It was then I see a grotesque mass of wings circling astronomical rings. On these rings were bloodshot red eyes of varying sizes and colors. Its very presence was distorting space around it. Its mere existence was causing my eyes to blur and my mind to race. As it spoke to me, I can see the axes of all creation merging and twisting. I managed to say, "What do you want?" The being stopped moving. The sound of its rings were making this akin, sort of rusty metal that was being ripped sound. The song of metal scraping against metal is all I can hear. And in an instant, I heard nothing. The darkness was all gone. I looked around and time was frozen. All there was me and this thing. Ye shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess served their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills, and under every green tree. It spoke to me. It felt like my very soul was shaking and I cannot stand on my own feet. What does that even mean? Why are you doing this? I let out with all my remaining strength. I took a deep breath and was able to pull myself up and stare this thing down. My child, you know not of what's to come. You must follow. I am your shepherd, and you are my flock. Listen to your heart, and hear my love, and feel my intent. All of this is just but a fleeting existence to the greater tomorrow. Child, even your family here are nothing but mere devices in a greater story. Fuck you. I said as loud as I can, push out of my exhausted body. Child, I gave you what you wanted most, yet you still deny me. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. It said. The sound of fluttering wings is all I heard. Time returned normally. I turned to see my family, my brother and father. Something was wrong. They were staring at me with massive grins, unhuman grins. Their smile kept growing, and slowly I can hear the squelching of the flesh, tearing as the faces keeps distorting. I reached out to them to try and stop whatever this was, but I was frozen, forced to watch. Blood was pouring from their mouths, and they were crying as they feebly reached out to me. Arms outstretched. I can see their arms twitching as they lost full control of their own body. It was then I heard the trumpets again, but this time it was distorted as if played off key. It was then my brother grabbed his bicep on his right arm and dug his fingers into his own flesh. Blood rushed out and sprayed on the floor as he dug into his arm. The sound of tendons snapping and his flesh slogging off his arm was sickening. I watched in forced horror as my own brother was pulling his muscles out of his own arm, removing the tendons and spraying blood on my face and painting the room in a dark red hue. And it wasn't over. I saw my brother after removing all the muscle in his arms and stripping his flesh. He then stared into my eyes, where he slowly grabs the top of his mouth and the bottom half. And with separate arms, he split open his own head, leaving nothing but the top part hanging on a thread as his body makes a sickening thud on the ground. I was forced to look at my father as we were released, but only for a moment. In that time, I rushed towards him and held him in my arms, both of us not saying a word. In a short time, I heard my father start to gurgle. I reeled back to look at him, and I wish I never did. His body was melting as a dark black liquid started to extrude out of every possible opening on his head. The smell was awful, like a decaying animal, but much more pungent. I watched as that's all I can do as I see my father slowly turn into a human meat puddle, bone and all. His very flesh melting in my own hands and his bones crumbling to dust. I was left alone again. Even the walls around the room started to decay. The darkness swallowed me once more. Shortly after, I felt it watching me. I swear I can hear this fucking thing, and a second time, it was weeping. After I turned to see it, I was crying tears of blood. I felt nothing but anger as I yelled every curse in the book. I ended my tirade with, "I will never help you or your kind. I will let this world burn before I bow to a monster like you." Shortly after, I woke up. I sprang out of bed and splashed water on my face. The horns, the sounds this thing was plaguing me with stopped. A moment of reprieve. These images of my family are still in my head. Why am I being tortured? Why am I chosen to bear this burden, whatever it may be? Sometimes the good has wicked intent, I suppose. I know one thing for sure. Fuck them. I have to log off, but I hope you guys stay safe and far away from here. Until next time, take care. Hello, Alex again. You guys keep coming back and checking on me, and I just wanted to say that I really appreciate it. Past few nights have been really hard on me. Every night I see my loved ones, and every night they take them away. I feel like I'm being tortured, and the only reason is because I'm a saint. I don't want this title. It's such a burden. Recently, the townsfolk have been acting really strange, and last night was even worse, and at this point, I'm just fearing that these things are going to take me too. It all started in the morning. It felt normal at first. I woke up, made coffee, and ate some eggs in a basket, just like my father used to make. I decided to turn my radio tower on to start broadcasting my music as I normally would, when what seems like a woman started pounding on my window. Immediately, this made me spill my boiling hot coffee on my freshly pulled out of the dryer pants. I yelled in pain, "What the fuck? Ow!" Once I pulled my stuff together, I see this woman staring at me through my window. She was covered in blood. Her eyes were white as marbles, and she was smiling. Shortly after, she started banging on the window again. This time I got to see it. Her hands were missing, and it was just a bloody stub with bits of flesh hanging off it. I dropped down behind my desk, and I almost vomited. This lady was my neighbor, Mrs. Jacobson. Normally, she would come by and hand me the newspaper. She and I weren't friends, more just friendly neighbors, just my mail would often end up at her place. I don't know what to do, as she kept pounding on the window, with each consecutive hit making a sickening, squelching noise as the blood-covered stump slapped on my window, leaving more and more blood and viscera behind. I stayed behind my desk as the image of her unearthly smile was burned into my brain. It wasn't more than a few minutes when it stopped. It was then I decided to slowly peek over the edge. I just saw her standing there, staring at me. No, through me. I can feel her gaze pierce my soul. She slowly opened her mouth, and it started to stretch in inhuman lengths as her mouth easily grew to be about 1 foot long. "What the fuck do you want?" I yelled. She just kept looking with her mouth wide open. It was at this moment I went to the window and just shut the blinds. I can hear her yelling. Nothing that makes sense. It was just more random ghoulish howling with a voice that was far too deep for her. I called the government guys in the church. "Hey, you guys said I should call if anything is out of the ordinary. Well, right now Mrs. Jacobson is outside my house banging on my window with a nub and screaming like she's possessed." I waited a few seconds and heard nothing. "Hello?" I asked, annoyed. "We have sent a team. Lock your doors and don't let anyone or anything in." I looked around and just said, Okay, can do. My office where I run the radio out of has a very heavy set of oak doors. It was carved by my father and was made so thick and heavy it blocked out sound from our house. My guess was so no ambient noise can bother his work. I rushed to my office doors and right before I can close it, I heard my front door burst open. It was her. She lifted her only hand pointed at me with her freakishly open mouth, and this time her eyes were completely white. She screamed an ungodly scream and started full sprinting and running at me. Now my hallway was not very long, but I was able to slam the door shut and deadbolt the door. She started banging on my door and I can barely hear her screams. It felt like hours of her just non-stop pounding on my door and screaming. I was stopped abruptly when I heard, faintly, people yelling to her to get on the fucking ground. Shortly after, followed by gunshots. I then hear the man yelling with blood-curdling screams. The bullets they shot left small holes in my door, large enough for me to look through them. When I peered through one of those holes, I see this crazy lady devouring these heavily armed men. The sounds of bones crunching in her hideous maw. The twisting and grinding, sinew and blood that squirts out of these men as she reaches in and to pull a large chunk out. I couldn't look away, but I was absolutely mortified by this beast of a woman I thought she was. I kept looking at her grotesque features and noticed. Her body was healing slowly together. The color in her skin was coming back. She slowly turned her head all the way around like she was an owl. I could hear her spine cracking in the pressure. She could sense me watching her. We locked eyes and she stood up and slowly turned around, keeping eyes locked on me. It was then she sprinted at the door, scaring the shit out of me. I fell backwards as I can see her eyes now, bright white, peering through one of the holes. She then spoke. "And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee." She spoke in a loud, thunderous tone. It was so loud it made me disoriented. I yelled back, "What are you wanting, you crazy bitch?" As my vision slowly came back to normal, she spoke again. "Child, you are a key part. You will recognize your role soon enough." Right after I saw a bright white light, heard the sounds of trumpets blaring. It felt like the whole world was shaking. Items were falling off my shelves and my roof cracked as the light got brighter and hotter. It all stopped and the lights vanished. The residual heat was still there, but Mrs. Robinson, or the thing she was gone. I opened the door slowly. All I saw was the bodies of the men and the ashes on the floor. My carpet was stained a dark crimson, and the smell of iron and burnt popcorn filled the air. I decided to shut my door and lock it again and called the command center that was in the church. They asked what happened. I explained it all and told them, "Come get these men off my floor, and I'm not leaving this room until it's safer. I will not be killed by some old lady." On the other end, all I hear is, "Understood. You need to be safe. Stay there and bunker down." I hung up and started to leave this note. Right now, they're cleaning up the carpet and removing all the evidence. I overheard them saying they found a slime on some of the bodies. I don't know what to do. Whatever happens next, I sure hope I can end these damn monsters. If you guys know anything on what to do or how to stop this, I fear my time is coming to an end. The sounds of the horns and chanting is louder than ever. I can even hear these things whispering in my ear, describing horrible and graphic battles and random acts of violence. I've gone so tired and sleep is rare. Please, I just want to die, but they won't let me. I'm going to try to fall asleep now. I'll keep you guys posted. Alex. For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. These words have been stuck in my head, playing on repeat like a broken record. I can feel my sanity fading as sleep deprivation sets in. I feel like there's eyes watching my every move. People narrating my every thought and feelings. I haven't stopped playing music as more and more townsfolk go missing. It's only a handful that are left from the town originally. For the people who tried to help me. The holy water in the church is locked up for some reason, and I did sew some crosses on me. The pain of doing so wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It's nothing compared to the mental anguish I've been dealing with. So thank you for all the kind words and suggestions. Now recently, besides the constant scripture running in my head and the occasional townsfolk hulking out and killing more soldiers, it's been quiet. No one really leaves their home. I don't get calls about the radio, and everyone seems to be surviving off the government rations they've been giving us. If anyone was wondering, it's pretty bland. Just boxes of potato flakes, off-brand water that tastes like pool water, and bread with some bologna that looks gray in color. Day in and day out, I feel like I'm not being protected, but contained. More or less like a prisoner. They even stopped answering my calls, which started this morning. However, some real shit went down, and I'm not sure if anyone other than me and maybe some of the town is still alive. It was shortly after I got ignored when I tried to call into the HQ and report a dead body in the street. It wasn't more than 10 minutes when I started hearing the horns again. This time I learned the horns only play when someone's being targeted. I know this may seem inhuman to say, but I started making test subjects out of my neighbors. Once I hear the horns, I go to all of my windows and look around. See what or who is being targeted, and like clockwork, I'll hear it. Someone starts to scream and then silence. After so many times this happened, I've just sort of become numb to the cries of the people. I can't stop thinking, They're the lucky ones being taken out and not having to be tortured by these things much longer. Now I'm pulling away from the point, so after the horns this morning, I looked all over the town and saw nothing this time. I kept looking, and it seems they were all safe, somehow. Shortly after, I heard gunfire coming from the church. They're being taken down. I started to hear someone call out to me. A voice that was very familiar, but I couldn't make it out. All of a sudden, my body moved on its own accord. It was helplessly moving towards the church. It's, terrifying to think you have no control of your own body, your safety, or your life. With this all left to the will of these angels. Last I checked, angels don't devour humans. At least it was never spoken about from my knowledge. As I started to pass the first gate, the smell of gunpowder and blood attacked my senses. It was so powerful my eyes began to burn, and I could taste the blood in the back of my throat. My body slowly marched toward the front door. Bullets were still flying through the door. One stuck me. The pain was unbearable, but it was only the begging. I could sense time slowing down, or maybe my senses were speeding up. The bullets that went through the door also pierced my chest, arms, and my neck. Each bullet that ripped into my flesh had me experiencing the pain for what felt like years, as time seems to be frozen. I was feeling the projectiles tear into me, and I felt every inch give way to the metal. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't cry out in pain or run away. The tearing of my flesh and piercing my organs got so extreme I felt like I was going to expire at any second. Have you ever felt your heart being pierced by hot lead? Or having the feeling of your chest cavity fill with blood? This must be hell, I thought as my body slowly marches forward. The smoke in the church began to clear as I saw the absolute massacre this was. Bodies were impaled on crosses and contorted in ways that reminded me of a horror movie. People were fused in the floor and their faces missing. One of them I stepped on, making a squelching noise as my foot peeled away a layer of their skin, and with a horrible pop as it fell on the floor. No matter what I did or thought, I just couldn't stop. My body felt like it was being controlled like a puppet on strings. When I got to the basement, the door was ripped off the hinges with the door itself pushed into a wall. Flashbacks as a child ran through my mind. I remember playing hide and seek in this basement with some of the other kids in my town, many of which I've seen eating other people in all this chaos. I remember my brother and I hiding behind a stack of chairs. We pressed ourselves as low to the ground as possible. We giggled as someone nearly found us. We only got up when I can hear the other boys yell, "All right, we give up. Y'all can come out now." As we stood up, I saw a black dot on my brother's neck. Shortly after, he yelled in pain and ran out. It was a black widow that bit him. My brother was rushed to the hospital, which was almost an hour away. I held his hand and kept telling him, "It'll be okay, little bro. It was just a small spider. You're gonna be fine." Of course, my brother was milking the attention. Some of the best acting I've ever seen was from this moment. After a few hours in the hospital, he was discharged, and ever since then, he's always been afraid of spiders. This memory, even with all the pain and crazy shit, it made me smile. It was a relief that was short-lived as I approached the pastor's quarters. The lights in the hall were flickering, and to the left and the right of me was people standing at the wall, looking at me. All of them with jet black eyes and pale skin. The people of this town were just meat suits for these things. I've grown a hatred for them. Parading around doing unholy things in people who I considered friends and family. Even when I tried to think of memories I had with them, the image of these things were replacing them, corrupting my very thoughts. As I passed all the people, I finally got to the door. It flew open by itself, and I can hear the crunching of bone, tearing of flesh. It was my brother. He was eating the one blind agent. I saw him ripping into the man with his long, bony fingers, his jaw unhinging as he shovels viscera into his gullet. The worst part was the teeth. He meticulously yanked each tooth out, and with a shiver-inducing crunch as he pulverized each one in his massive maw. I could only wait as he was in a trance-like state. I was forced to watch my little brother, or what was my little brother, eat the eyes, and then bursting liquid like peeled grapes. After the thing was full, he stood up and turned toward me, looking me in the eyes. His eyes were dark, they showed no light. It was all black, and I could feel the overwhelming sense of malice as it just stared at me. My body was still unable to move as it slowly closed the distance. With each step, the feeling of dread grew, and it felt like my heart was getting louder. I could only think to myself, if this was true fear, will I live another moment? He got in front of me and said one thing. A war is coming, and you are a major piece in it. Will you stand by humanity, or those winged beasts whom watch over and terrorize you? I cannot make the choice for you, child, but know this. I do love you. This oddly felt genuine. The feelings of dread and malice were dissipating. I don't know how to describe it other than it felt natural. Child, I will not harm your brother as he agreed to help me speak to you. The angels above cast him aside like a broken toy. However, I found use in the boy, and together we can take over the heavens. Pray that we succeed, for I have seen the throne of God, and it was empty. Who is he? What was he? Suddenly, this being reached out and tapped my forehead, sending me into a deep sleep. I woke up nearly instantly and was in a panic. Covered in sweat, I surveyed my surroundings. Everything was too quiet, so I rushed to look out the window toward the church, and it was all normal again. I quickly called the operation lead, and they instantly picked up. Yes, Alex? Are you okay? How are they alive? I saw my brother eat him in front of my own 2 eyes. I replied in a rushed and worried tone. What day is it? How long have I been asleep? Well, it's Sunday, and I would say you've been silent for 2 days. I guess that old lady really stressed you out. How are you feeling? I can hear typing in the background as if he was typing down our conversation. I'm fine. Just had a really bad dream. How many people in the town are left? I asked. Most of them are left. Why? Everything okay? At this point, I decided to look outside. I see people walking around and talking like nothing ever happened. I'll be okay. Thank you. It must have just been a vivid dream. So I just hung up there, not wanting to speak about it anymore. I didn't want to go through it again. After I fell backward onto my bed, breathing in deep and letting it out. The trumpets are no longer playing, it was just silence. I'm still shaken up by this, since it felt so real. I guess I'm going to start my radio up and pretend like nothing happened. One question on my mind. Can my brother be saved? I may never know. I'm exhausted mentally, so this is enough for today. I'll keep you guys updated, so please pray for me. I may need it. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Peter 5:8. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Ephesians 6:12. What is time? Is it just a construct of man to keep with the pace of our existence, or is it something more? Something malleable? I can't shake the feeling that I've done all this before. The existential dread of this whole situation seems so familiar. Oh, right. I'm sorry, I don't think you know who I am. My name is Alex. I live in this rather small farming city. We have a church on a hill and one very local grocery store, and somehow there's a Dollar General too. Life here is rather simple and easy. I wake up, I turn on my studio, and I broadcast music for the town. It's nothing special, just classic rock and some country, but I make decent money off it. Recently, I've been experiencing stranger and stranger events. It feels real, but at the same time, just like a dream. It all started when military trucks and other large equipment started being hauled into the town. They took over the church as a base of operations, I'm guessing. They even put up large fences and barbed wire all around it. Whatever they were doing must have been serious. They came to my door and asked to use the air raid siren. The only way to access it was to enter my shed and turn it on manually. When I told them this, they just said, "That's fine. We will just go into your backyard once a week to run a test, so don't mind us." I cocked my head a little, as I could have sworn I've heard this before. "Yeah, that's fine. Just knock on the door before you go back, just in case. I'm in a stand your ground state, so I don't want to catch a charge for taking out a trespasser." They just looked at me and smiled and said, "Will do, Chief." And then he left and got into his truck and drove off. I looked around, and across the street from me, I can see my brother mowing his lawn. So I walked up to him, wanting to speak with him. "Hey, big bro." He stops the engine of his mower. "Hey, little dude. How have you and the wife been?" He smiled and said, "Great, but we have big news." I looked at him puzzled. "Well, what's the news?" "Sammy's pregnant. We just tested this morning, and I feel like since you helped me in my life so much, you can be the baby's official godparent and uncle, of course." I cracked a large smile ear to ear. "Wow, I'm so happy for you guys." My brother then just put his arms around me and we shared a hug. It was nice considering all we've been through together. "Why don't we have dinner here tonight? I'm grilling ribs and my wife is making potato salad. You know, it's your favorite." I grabbed my chin. That sounds perfect. Been waiting for some home-cooked meals. I've been swamped with work and school recently." He just said, "All right, see you then. I need to mow. It won't cut itself." I waved goodbye and walked back to my house so I can start the next playlist on the radio. I get home, and when I open the door, a wave of emotion hit me like a ton of bricks. I started crying, but I don't know why. My heart was racing, and I can feel anxiety rushing in. I tried composing myself enough to get to my bed. I just laid there sobbing. Why am I sad? Why is this happening? I thought to myself. Shortly after, I got a knock on my door. It somehow pulled me out of this anxiety attack, which is good. I opened the door and a man with what looks to be cataracts on his eyes greeted me. "Hello, Mr. York. How are you?" I looked at him a little puzzled. "Just call me Alex. I'm doing fine. Can I help you with something?" I felt a bit off-put by this man. He looked to be blind, but he climbed my stairs without aid and drove here. "Yes, we need to use the siren, and we want you to stay inside for a few hours. It's for your own safety." I started to panic a little, but kept it under so he wouldn't notice. "Sure, it's in the shed." The man looked at me and just said, "Thank you. Just lock your door and close your blinds. The siren will tell you the rest." I said, "Aren't you in danger too?" He just started to walk away and yelled out, "I'll be fine, Alex." The anxiety was welling up in my throat again, so in a hurry I locked my door and closed my blinds. Shortly after, I hear the sirens go off. "Stay inside and go to the nearest room without windows. If you can't, close the blinds and cover your ears and eyes. This is not a drill. Do not leave for any reason. If someone is caught leaving, they will be marked as a threat. If you hear knocks at the window or door, do not answer it, even if it's family or friends, and even if they are in a dire situation. Again, this is not a drill, and we will let you know when to come out." Oddly specific. I hope my brother will be okay. I waited there in my office, and I hear a song on the radio playing. It was one of my favorite songs. "Time Is on My Side" by the Rolling Stones. It reminds me of my father a lot. Him and my mom used to sing this song to us. The Rolling Stones being his favorite band. All this daydreaming was cut short as I heard a gunshot across the street. I peeked through my blinds and I see my brother. He was being attacked. This thing that looked like our friend Aaron, but with grotesque and elongated limbs with a massive jaw. My instincts told me to hide, but I couldn't let my brother die. So I ran out and sprinted toward his house. I needed to catch my breath, but I can see his front door ripped off its hinges. I was about to look inside, being cautious. Maybe I can catch this thing off guard, I thought to myself. So I peered into his house. It was the worst thing that I could imagine. A fine mist of blood lingered in the air. I can taste it in the back of my throat. I almost gagged when I looked further in. It was Sammy. This thing was devouring Sammy. It sat hunched over her body, scooping blood and viscera into its gullet. The grinding of bone and the squelching sound of flesh spraying the wall in blood was enough to cause me to temporarily black out. I must have quickly regained consciousness as I see the figure stand up with no sign of my brother or his wife. No blood on the floor, just a pile of black ash. The thing turned to me, but as we locked eyes, it started to distort my vision. Every time I tried to focus on it, it would disappear. But I looked slightly away and in my peripherals. It looked to have changed its shape. Now it seemed to be a mass of wings. 7? No, 8 of them. Circling something in the middle of it all. It slowly glided to me and I was frozen in place, unable to move or react. My chest felt like it was going to explode. And then it spoke. Its voice sounded like a rusty can being scraped by a fork, with the faint sound of horns in the distance. Its thunderous voice shook my very existence as it spoke. It said, "Be not afraid, child. You will be saved as you are a saint." I keep thinking back. Where have I heard this? I can't remember. Was it a dream? In that moment, the mass of wings slowly moved toward me. In that moment, everything went black. I saw things I couldn't make out darting across the void in my mind. I heard a scream in my ear, and what got louder was the sound of a trumpet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Blasts from a trumpet. No, it was 7. The thunderous voice spoke in my dreamscape. "We will meet again, child. A war is coming." I woke slowly, but in the distance I could hear the flapping of wings and the siren go off once more. "Civilians, coast is clear. I repeat, coast is clear. We ask you to stay in your homes so we can do more research. Please bear with us a little longer. Thank you." Within mere seconds, I was surrounded by men armed to the teeth. Holy fuck, he's still alive. One of them picked me up and 3 other men rushed into my brother's home. What's happened to my brother? I was still barely able to stand on my own. My head was still spinning. He's gone. I'm sorry. I gained a bit more consciousness and realized what he just said. What the fuck do you mean, gone? I was fuming. Something just ate my brother and his wife. We can't explain right now. Just go home and rest. We'll send someone to speak to you. I reluctantly walked back. But what could I do? fight the armed men who were just trying to help me. It wasn't their fault. I clambered back into my home and went straight to my bed, and I just collapsed. I can't put a finger on it, but I sense deja vu. It's all too familiar, and I can't shake this feeling. As I laid on my bed reliving the thoughts of my brother dying and seeing his wife being devoured, this whole ordeal seems so surreal. It wasn't but an hour later when I heard knocking at my door. I got up to answer it, and to my surprise, it was the same blind man. "Hello, Mr. York. I need to speak with you." I waved him in and sat at the kitchen table. "Can I get you anything to drink? What's your name?" He smiled. "My name is Lucy. And yes, do you have Coke?" I blinked a few times. "All right, Lucy, coming up." I brought 2 cans of Coke. I slid him his across my table. "So what was that thing? And what do you want from me?" He takes a deep sip of the drink and lets out a sigh. "Alex, we know what you are, and we know who you are. Haven't you felt like you've done this before? It's time to give up on resisting, Alex. We need you." I looked at him puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" He stood up and placed his glass on the table. His eyes were pitch black. Light didn't even shine on them. It was all empty like an endless void. What's wrong with your eyes?" He chuckled slightly. "Don't worry, child. Join my cause, and we shall return your brother." I started to sweat. My heart was racing faster than my mind. What is this man? It was then he reached out and grabbed my hand. I was unable to move as I saw the future. Life and death. The start of the universe and the decay of it all flooded my mind. I felt I was everywhere at the same time. He suddenly let go, and all the vision stopped. "Do you understand now, child? We were destined to take over these heavens. You were meant for greater things. I can't believe it, so I asked, This is all too much right now. Can we do this later?" He shook his head. "You have until midnight, or all of this will come full circle." I looked at him and let out a long sigh. Fine. I need to do something first. He just got up and walked out the door. It looked like he understood. So, here I am now. I know it's a lot to unpack, but I can't shake this feeling of deja vu. I guess I'm signing off. Until next time. Alex Y. Hi, my name is Alex. I live in this rather small farming city. We have a church on a hill and one very local grocery store, and somehow there's a Dollar General too. Life here is rather simple and easy. I wake up, I turn on my studio, and I broadcast music for the town. It's nothing special, just classic rock and some country. But I make decent money off it.